Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 320 of the Prancing Pony Podcast, where... Do I have to read this joke? Sara's gonna kill me. The women can tell me nothing.
I sure hope the Warden has an empty room and plenty of healing herbs for you. Folks,
you had to throw
Sara
healing
Brown.
herbs in there, huh? All right, fine.
Herbs. Folks, I'm Sara Brown, Shield Maiden of Rohan, and I'm here with the lucky to still be alive man of the West, who can lie longer in sloth, Alan Sisto.
Seriously, 7 days of bed rest, where do I sign, right? Man, Éowyn's just complaining about nothing. Folks, join us as our favorite couple finally has their meet cute in the first of our 4 episodes on the Steward and the King, the 5th chapter in Book 6 of The Lord of the Rings.
No matter how you arrive, folks, you're all welcome here in the common room. At the Prancing Pony Podcast, we are reading and talking our way through Middle-earth with plenty of speculation and bad jokes along the way.
More than your fair share. We love deep dives into the lore, discussing our favorite themes, and of course a whole lot more.
But we tried to keep it light and fun, like a couple of friends chatting at the pub, and we're glad you joined us.
And I'm sure you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get to tonight's chapter discussion, now that we're back in Minas Tirith and back in time to March 20th, we need to remind ourselves of what's happening meanwhile elsewhere in Middle-earth. Now, we open this chapter on the 20th of March, I guess I should say, for my co-host, rather than March 20th. 5 days after the Battle of the Pelennor Fields and the injuries to Faramir and Éowyn, and just 2 days after the host of the West left the White City for the Black Gate.
And folks, note how well I'm training Alan Sisto as we go along.
You're never going to get me to say anything other than herbs when it comes to that one, though.
Challenge accepted. Anyway, most of what happens in this chapter happens on the 20th and 21st of March, though we get that and each day after they did likewise, that extends us through the 24th. So we'll focus mostly on those first 2 days, so you'll know what's going on with Frodo and Sam, as well as with the host of the West on the 20th and 21st of March.
Now, the challenge is that the Tale of Years in Appendix B, it's completely silent on these 2 days alone, it seems. We literally have entries for every single day in March, from the 1st through the 19th. The 19th is that the host comes to Morgul Vale, Frodo and Samwise escape, talking about the orcs, and begin their journey along the road to Barad-dûr. And then we have entries for the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and 25th, but nothing for the 20th and 21st. So we have to look at other resources like William Cloud Hicklin's chronology in the 2022 Tolkien Studies Supplement. Now, this thing has been one of my go-to resources for timeline stuff because it's Tolkien's own roadmap, laying out all the events that each group is dealing with.
So for March 20th, the entry for Frodo and Sam on the chronology simply reads, quote, on the southward road for 4 days. That's it.
That's not much, is it?
It's not. It's a little bit denuded of detail. Much of the early portion of the chapter, Mount Doom, takes place on the 19th, but the morning of the 20th begins here. So the desperate journey went on as the ring went south and the banners of the king rode north. For the hobbits, each day, each mile was more bitter than the one before as their strength lessened and the land became more evil. They met no enemies by day. At times by night, as they cowered or drowsed uneasily in some hiding beside the road, they heard cries and the noise of many feet or the swift passing of some cruelly ridden steed. But far worse than all such perils was the ever-approaching threat that beat upon them as they went, the dreadful menace of the power that waited, brooding in deep thought and sleepless malice behind the dark veil about its throne. Nearer and nearer it drew, looming blacker like the oncoming of a wall of night at the last end of the world.
Man, I got to say that word picture. Yeah, the oncoming of a wall of night at the last end of the world is intense.
It really is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got dreadful menace and sleepless malice and all of those words that feel really quite familiar. But, you know, it's that sense of encroaching dread.
And you're walking towards it. I mean, the courage and strength it must take to be walking towards that threat instead of away from it.
Right. Yeah. Just keeping on going. And you can just imagine how it must feel heavier and harder every single time you take a step towards that malice.
Exactly. Well, I mean, earlier in the passage, it talks about as their strength lessened and the land became more evil. So you have this combination of factors, right? The land itself is becoming harder and harder to traverse, even if your strength had remain static. But in their case, their strength is going down and the difficulty is going up. So it's really ramping it up here. And,
right, definitely.
It's easy to forget they're not totally alone on this road. They didn't meet anybody by day, the text says. But the idea that when they're hiding at night, just kind of napping, drowsing, sort of catching snippets of sleep, they'll hear, entire units going by or cavalry units, presumably scouts or messengers going by. And how terrifying that must have been in the dark of night in the middle of Mordor.
It must be utterly terrifying because it's just being surrounded by all this evil.
Yeah.
So you've got this oppressive sense of encroaching dread of that sleepless malice that permeates the whole of Mordor. But then you have the more sort of immediate danger of you could be caught and then stuck with a sword any second now. Because
exactly, or taken to the Dark Tower. I mean, it's
exactly
we speculated what would have happened when they got captured by those orcs.
Yeah, you're dealing with that sense of kind of existential dread, but you're also dealing with the more immediate problem of if we're not really well hidden, we're going to get caught.
Yeah, it's all over. Well, by the next time we get a fixed reference to dates, the next paragraph says, there came at last a dreadful nightfall. We're able to reconcile that and know that we're now at the 22nd. And they're now at the very end of their strength of body and will, right? We talked about their strength lessening, but it gets worse. Even as the captains of the West drew near to the end of the living lands, the two wanderers came to an hour of blank despair. 4 days had passed since they had escaped from the orcs, but the time lay behind them like an ever-darkening dream. All this last day Frodo had not spoken, but had walked half-bowed, often stumbling, as if his eyes no longer saw the way before his feet. Sam guessed that among all their pains he bore the worst, the growing weight of the ring, a burden on the body and a torment to his mind. Anxiously, Sam had noted how his master's left hand would often be raised as if to ward off a blow or to screen his shrinking eyes from a dreadful eye that sought to look in them. And sometimes his right hand would creep to his breast, clutching, and then slowly, as the will recovered mastery, it would be withdrawn. Oh.
What Frodo is going through at this point is just indescribable, I think.
It really is.
To start with, I love this way in which Tolkien makes it feel almost like Frodo and Sam are in a bubble out of time.
Mm-hmm.
That idea of
That's a good way of putting
4
it.
days had passed since they'd escaped from the orcs, but the time lay behind them like an ever-darkening dream, so they can't quite keep a hold of a sense of time.
And neither can the reader, because we don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're traveling through this appalling place with very little sense of when they are. And to be taken out of time like that is so disorienting because you just kind of keep putting one foot in front of the other, but you can't really track your day. And of course, it's dark a lot of the time anyway. And so it's just that sense of being very, very small in this particularly awful place.
It must feel like an eternal treadmill in some ways.
Right.
I mean, like you're just never going to end. You're never going to make progress. Oh, and it just does not stop. And poor Frodo, I mean, it's just, it's affecting every one of his senses, I'm sure. Man.
Sure. But notice how even at this point, and think about how close they are now to the end, right? And yet even now there's enough will to stop him from putting on the ring.
Yeah.
That is incredible that he still
really
has the
is.
strength in the heart of Mordor to stop himself putting on the ring. I actually think that's an immense amount of strength.
That's a victory still, really. I mean, for him, we know, of course, that at the end, as anybody would have, he fails. But I want to put fails in air quotes every single time because it's an impossible circumstance. The fact that he's even at this point still able to recover enough will to master his response to grab the ring, that is significant and very, very impressive. Speaks a lot to Frodo's strength.
Praise them with great praise.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so going back to the chronology and the 20th of March, we read on the entry for that day, host marches along the south road towards Morannon, halts 20 miles north of Crossroads. So in the part of the chapter after the host burned the fields in Imlad Morgul, we read, The day after, being the third day since they set out from Minas Tirith, so that would be the 20th of March, the army began its northward march along the road. It was some 100 miles by that way from the crossroads to the Morannon, and what might befall them before they came so far, none knew. They went openly but heedfully, with mounted scouts before them on the road and others on foot upon either side, especially on the eastward flank.
Well, which makes sense. So later, of course, we would read, "Ever and anon Gandalf let blow the trumpets, and the heralds would cry, 'The lords of Gondor are come! Let all leave this land or yield them up!' But Imrahil, I love Imrahil, he said, 'Say not the lords of Gondor, say the King Elessar, for that is true, even though he has not yet sat upon the throne, and it will give the enemy more thought if the heralds use that name.'" Imrahil.
Good old Imrahil.
Yeah. The next day, which would be the 21st of March, that's when we'll see Faramir and Éowyn take their first walk together in this episode. That's when the host will cover another 25 miles, as the chronology tells us that host halts 45 miles north of Crossroads.
So much going on all at the same time now.
I know.
Yeah. So the 22nd of March saw the host defeat the half-hearted ambush near Henethanoon. Aragorn was underwhelmed with the victory.
Yeah.
So we have this, "It is but a feint," said Aragorn, "and its chief purpose, I deem, was rather to draw us on by a false guess of our enemy's weakness than to do us much hurt yet." And from that evening onward, the Nazgul came and followed every move of the army. They still flew high and out of sight of all save Legolas, and yet their presence could be felt, as a deepening of shadow and dimming of the sun, and though the ring-wraiths did not yet stoop low upon their foes and were silent, uttering no cry, the dread of them could not be shaken off. Ooh,
you know, terrifying thought. And I'm sure that had a lot to do with the way that as we'll get to in a moment, the men who sort of lost heart.
You always feel like somebody's watching me.
I like that.
Ooh.
Good. So Sauron, of course, as Matt and I talked about in the last chapter, is a little short-sighted here, right? Instead of leaving a Nazgul or two to do recon in Mordor near, I don't know, Mount Doom, he sends the remaining 8 to provide this sort of high-altitude psychological warfare. Honestly, don't you think 6 or 7 could have done the job, and he could have had 1 or 2 as scouts? But anyway, that's Sauron for you. So we are covering a little bit more than just the 20th and 21st of March, since we do get through the 24th tonight, but we literally just covered Frodo and Sam not that long ago. So we're going to do one more Host of the West moment, and that's Aragorn's dismissal of the faint-hearted. Now, this took place on the 23rd, so it's one of those days when Faramir and Éowyn are hanging out in the garden at the Houses of Healing that we'll read about at the very end of today's episode. Upon the 4th day from the crossroads and the 6th from Minas Tirith, they came at last to the end of the living lands, and began to pass into the desolation that lay before the gates of the pass of Cirith Gorgor. And they could descry the marshes and the desert that stretched north and west to the Emyn Muil. So desolate were those places, and so deep the horror that lay on them, that some of the host were unmanned, and they could neither walk nor ride further north. Aragorn looked at them, and there was pity in his eyes rather than wrath, for these were young men from Rohan, from Westfold far away, or husbandmen from Lasarnoch. And to them, Mordor had been from childhood a name of evil and yet unreal, a legend that had no part in their simple life. And now they walked like men in a hideous dream made true, and they understood not this war, nor why fate should lead them to such a pass. Now, we read about Aragorn's dismissal of the troops in another Meanwhile Elsewhere in Middle-earth. So today I just want to focus on the experience of these men. Aragorn sends them to Caer Andros with orders to retake the strategically important island, and indeed some do. Others found their courage and kept going, but you weren't with me on these particular moments,
Right.
Sara, which is why I wanted to bring that up here and get your input on this and chat through this a little bit.
Yeah, I feel terribly sorry for these men, because it's like the boogeyman is suddenly real.
Yeah.
Right.
And incredibly powerful and terrifying, and you're going to his front door. Yeah.
Exactly. And don't forget that the power of Sauron is reaching out from beyond the borders of Mordor. And you've got the Nazgul floating around above your head. And that sense of doom and oppression beaten down on you. These are not people who are used to being soldiers. They're
Right.
not that often in battle. They have
No.
answered the call, as is their duty, but this is something out of their experience. When you read how they're ashamed of their own behavior, I just feel so sorry for them. And it takes me to thinking about Tolkien's own experiences on the front in the First World War.
Yeah.
And how it must have been so utterly appalling for these young men to have been regaled all their lives, particularly the ones of the upper classes at their schools, regaled all their lives with these stories of great heroism and how glorious it is. And then that, and how absolutely, utterly terrifying it must have been. But these men, they do keep their honor. Some of them find a little strength to keep going, and that is to their credit. But the others don't just run home.
No, they go do a job.
Yeah, they have a job to do, and they do that.
Exactly. Otherwise, the field of Karbala might be a little different if the Isle of Cair-Andros hadn't been taken.
Exactly.
They clearly did their job, and that would have been difficult. That would have been a hard battle to fight for sure. But yeah, you're right. I mean, and I'm glad that Tolkien takes the time in the description to point out who these guys were. These aren't the knights of the Prince of Dol Amroth. These aren't Éomer's top Éored. This is the husbandman from Lasarnak. These are the fishermen from the coast. Don't know anything of war. These are young men, 18, 19 years old, maybe even younger, from, small little villages that have known no combat more than fighting off wildlife. And to them, this is just incredibly overwhelming. Yeah, sure. Maybe they made it through the Battle of the Pelennor, but still, this is different.
Yeah, it is different because in the Battle of the Pelennor, you can see your adversary. There they are right in front of you.
Yeah.
And you will have been trained in sword fighting and, wielding armor and all that kind of thing.
Right.
And this is, I'm not saying it's easy, backtracking from that. It's easier in some ways because you can see your foe directly in front of you. And it's like, okay, take sword, stab. Right?
Our unit of men against their unit of orcs or men, depending on whether you're talking about Southrons or not. But
yeah. How do you deal, though, with the kind of psychological battering that you're getting constantly from the Nazgul just floating around up there like evil shadows?
And the numbers, right? You know that you're talking about just a few thousand men and you're going to the very front door of Mordor.
Yeah.
And you realize, we had a much larger force at the Battle of the Pelennor and we almost lost anyway. And here we are going to the enemy's front door with a much smaller crowd. And I don't know. There are times I wonder, how much did Aragorn explain? How much could he risk explaining to these men about why they were doing this? Like, we're not going in order to win a battle. We're going in order to buy Frodo time. Yes, Aragorn knows that. Éomer knows that. Gandalf knows that, etc. But does the average soldier know that? I don't know. I can't imagine that they do.
It doesn't sound like the kind of info that you pass out to everybody.
No.
And besides which, you might lose a bunch of them before you set off on the road.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're probably going to go die today, but the hope is that we'll give this guy a chance to save the world. Okay.
Right.
You guys go right ahead. I'm going to take that Cair-Andros place. Yeah.
Yep.
But I think the clue there is in that very last line. They understood not this war. So I don't think in this case that they know why they're doing this. They just know they're off on what looks to them to be a suicide mission.
Yeah. Can't blame them. Really can't blame them at all.
Can't blame them at all. Well, I always love that segment. I mean, sometimes we end up covering the same thing twice because that's how it works. But I like the way it helps us put the events of today's episode in context with what's going on elsewhere. And let's go ahead and have us start out this chapter. Sara, would you take the first reading today?
I would love to. Okay. When the captains were but 2 days gone, the Lady Éowyn bade the women who tended her to bring her raiment, and she would not be gainsaid, but rose. And when they had clothed her and set her arm in a sling of linen, she went to the Warden of the Houses of Healing. "Sir," she said, "I am in great unrest, and I cannot lie longer in sloth." "Lady," he answered, "you are not yet healed, and I was commanded to tend you with especial care. You should not have risen from your bed for 7 days yet, or so I was bidden. I beg you to go back." "I am healed," she said. Healed at least in body, save my left arm only, and that is at ease. But I shall sicken anew if there is naught that I can do. Are there no tidings of war? The women can tell me nothing. There are no tidings, said the Warden, save that the lords have ridden to Morgul Vale, and men say that the new captain out of the north is their chief. A great lord is that, and a healer, and it is a thing passing strange to me that the healing hand should also wield the sword. It is not thus in Gondor now, though once it was so, if old tales be true. But for long years we healers have only sought to patch the rents made by the men of swords. Though we should still have enough to do without them, the world is full enough of hurts and mischances without wars to multiply them. It needs but one foe to breed a war, not two, Master Warden, answered Éowyn, and those who have not swords can still die upon them. Would you have the folk of Gondor gather you herbs only when the Dark Lord gathers armies? And it is not always good to be healed in body, nor is it always evil to die in battle, even in bitter pain. Were I permitted, in this dark hour, I would choose the latter.
Wow. I mean, this chapter just starts out at a 10, and it doesn't let up. We did have to skip that first paragraph because we're not going to be skipping much. Tolkien does do a fantastic job there bringing us right back to the last moments that we were here in the city, starting with that feeling of doubt and dread and how he sort of juxtaposes that against the fair weather and clear sun. I think that's just a really great way of getting us right back into that sense.
Right, yes, because there had been a victory, but Denethor was dead and gone. Yep. Theoden was dead and lying in state. And this new guy, who everyone is saying is their king, has already gone off to a war that was quite literally impossible to win.
Yeah. I mean, what does that do for the people of the city of Minas Tirith? Like, oh, great, we have a king. I haven't met him. I hear he's off to go, tilt at windmills. I mean, the ordinary citizen of Gondor, the victory, first of all, would feel somewhat Pyrrhic. Not that they would use that term, but the fact that they finally have this king after over 1,000 years, let's not forget, only to have him go throw away his life and the lives of their best soldiers. What's that do to them, do you think?
Right. I mean, some of them may well know the tale of the last king who just threw away his life, right?
Yes.
And who wants history repeating itself when it's something like that?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, you'd be a bit confused, might feel a little bit abandoned. I mean, the Battle of the Pelennor Field was not fun for anybody, even those who stayed within Minas Tirith. No. So the idea that you've got a king returned, king's gone. Oh, right.
And our steward is gone.
Right.
And his son is basically on death's door. Exactly.
So who exactly is in charge?
That's actually going to be one of Éowyn's questions coming up today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. So as we were saying a little bit earlier, it seems highly unlikely that Aragorn would have had the time, possibly even the inclination, to explain why he and the rest of the forces had to go to the Black Gate.
Yeah.
Probably little, if any, risk of the news getting back to Sauron, especially with Denethor's death. No one's using that Palantir.
That's a fair point. I mean, it's not like, loose lips sink ships here. I don't think we're worried about treachery from the city of Minas Tirith. And how's anybody going to get a message to Sauron anyway without the Palantir? So
exactly,
it's more a matter of time and just, let's get this job done. We don't have time to explain this to everybody. And all they're going to do, like you said earlier, is lose numbers from that.
Can you imagine him sending out the town crier? Hear ye, we're going
Here's
on a
long
suicide
story.
mission.
Yeah, exactly. Please join your king downstairs for certain death.
Any volunteers?
Exactly. Anybody take a step forward, the whole city just steps back. A few guys are left. Oh, I guess I'm going. So the whole town is waking up each morning waiting for news, frankly, that their king is dead, that their best soldiers are dead. They're all slaughtered by the forces of Sauron at the Black Gate. So I guess no news is good news for a little bit. There has been no news since the day that Aragorn's forces turned north. Like we talked about in the intro, that took place on the 19th after the host had arrived at the Morgul Vale and then headed up.
Right. I mean, in fairness, though, as we'll find out shortly, today is the 20th of March, so they haven't been waiting that long yet.
That's true. That only happened yesterday.
Exactly. Although I suppose 24 hours is a long time when you're expecting Sauron's forces to come back again.
Mm-hmm.
So we pick up with the host having left 2 days before. As we said, that makes today the 20th of March, and that's why we covered the 20th to the 24th of March in the intro segment today.
That's correct. So with the stage set and our calendars and watches synchronized, we return to the story with Éowyn asking to be brought some clothes. I'm thinking she doesn't like the paper gowns they give you in the hospital. I wouldn't
those
either.
are terrible though, aren't they?
Terrible. They give you the bag and they say, put your clothes in this bag and wear this. And I'm thinking, is there room in that bag for my dignity? Because I'm not going to be able to retain it with that stupid paper gown. I've had a surgery this year and I remember it too vividly. So
yeah, they're not fun.
Frankly, anesthetize me first. I don't want to, don't make me put that thing on. So she asks to be brought some clothes because she wants to get up and go to the warden, hospital administrator, attending physician, whatever he is, for whom she has some thoughts with a capital T.
She really does. And it's interesting that her first statement is exactly that. It's not a question. She's not asking for anything particular. She just says she can't lie here any longer. I sympathize.
Éowyn she does not have a question. She just wants to make her opinion known. I can't lie here in sloth any longer, which, it's not so bad, really. I'd love some sloth, frankly. The warden explains he is under orders to take extra special care of her and claims that she shouldn't be up for another week. So please go back to your bed.
Okay. Now, side note, this isn't quite accurate, but he's certainly going with the spirit of the orders of Aragorn, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, frankly, if Aragorn tells me to keep her in bed for a certain amount of time, I might, if he says at least, then I might err on the side of give her an extra couple days. And that's what's happening here. Because if we go back to the Houses of Healing, we read Aragorn and Gandalf went now to the Warden of the Houses of Healing. So that's this guy. And they counseled him that Faramir and Éowyn should remain there and still be tended with care for many days. The Lady Éowyn, said Aragorn, will wish soon to rise and depart, but she should not be permitted to do so if you can in any way restrain her, until at least 10 days be past.
Yeah, I love that. If you can in any way restrain her.
Aragorn knows her well.
Right. But let's note, that was on March the 15th.
Exactly.
After the victory on the field of Pelennor, and today is March the 20th. So it's been 5 days, leaving 5 more days before she should be allowed to rise and depart, not 7. And yes, I am going to be that pedant.
Well, and so would Éowyn, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And here's the thing. Maybe he's thinking business week, right? I mean, this is Monday. You shouldn't be up until the end of the week. Maybe it's not a week to go, but, well, no, he does say 7 days. I don't know. It could be a miscalculation on the warden's part. It could be an extra dose of healthy concern. It might even, unlikely, have been a miscalculation on Tolkien's part. Truth is, we'll never know.
Yep. Now, Éowyn claims that she is healed, with the important disclaimer, at least in body. That's really significant.
That is big,
Except for her broken arm, now in a sling. She's always like, broken arm, whatever.
Yeah, you've got it in a sling. We're good.
Yeah, and I mean, does she have a point? Yeah. Right?
Well, it's a small point. I mean, when she says at least in body, and we're going to get back to that for sure, I feel like part of the black breath, which is what she was exposed to, which is what caused her to nearly die,
right,
is in fact that despair, that stuff that is a sickness or is an injury that isn't in body. And so to say you're healed at least in body does not mean that you're really capable of doing all the things you think you're capable of doing.
Exactly.
So, it's a tough call.
It is, but I mean, her physical hurts are almost the least of her hurts.
They really are.
A broken arm can actually be fairly easily fixed.
Yeah.
But the despair and the darkness that her mind has been through, that's not a snap of the fingers cure.
No, I mean, she wasn't even in a great place before the encounter with the Witch King. If you think about all she had endured from Wormtongue to, her uncle and then Aragorn telling her, stay here, having to hide as Durnhelm through the entire journey. Now she has to face the Witch King on top of that? No wonder she's not in a great place.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she asks for news. And actually, I think there's a lot to talk about here. She asked for news since, quote, the women can tell her nothing.
Ooh, yeah.
Now, before Alan goes off on one of his jokes again about women telling her nothing.
Trust me, I know better, Sarah. I already made that joke, and I'm making sure my life insurance is paid up. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it sounds to me like that there's actually very little to tell her.
Yeah.
So even if they have told her the things that the warden then tells her, Aragorn's gone off to the Blackgate, but that's all anyone can tell her. And so even if she's been told that, she's probably castigated that as being nothing, because it really isn't that much, is it?
No,
it doesn't
not
tell
from
her
her perspective.
A lot of detail. Right. So it's possible that the medics have decided that Éowyn shouldn't be troubled by what is going on. not realizing that being kept in ignorance, was going to say kept in the dark, but that has other connotations for her right now.
Yes, it does. Yeah, good point.
Right, but being kept in ignorance would actually trouble her more. It's not going to help her depressive state.
No, it won't, especially if she even suspects that she's being kind of, protected in that way.
Exactly.
If she comes to find out there is news and she's not being told it for her own sake, she is going to... She's going to rip some heads off. Yeah.
She is not going to be pleased. Yes.
No, she will not. It is interesting, the women can tell me nothing. It does feel, at least from my perspective, like she's a little bit dismissive of the staff, the nursing staff, maybe Yorith's team. I don't know. The rest of the warden's people. But like you said, it may just be because the warden has given orders. Don't tell her anything. So yeah. Hard to say.
Yeah, and of course, we look at what kind of hierarchy there is in this house of healing. She has to go, she has to go find the warden. Yeah. Right? He's not hanging around on the ward. He's off, he's probably in an office shuffling
filling out paperwork. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Insurance won't pay itself, man. Yeah.
Exactly. So she's probably surrounded by people like Yorith, and what they would be able to tell her is as much as anybody at the moment outside of that very small circle of people around Aragorn, as much as anybody can tell her. So when she says the women can tell me nothing, I don't read that as a pointed dismissal of women. I read that as a
even
dismissal.
These women. Certainly not women in general. I wouldn't have read it to that degree.
Not in front of me, anyway.
Well, no. Wow, little faith.
Meanwhile, in Alan Knows Better. But yeah, I think she's dismissing them in the sense of, I've been trying to ask them to tell me things, and she probably feels like they won't, whereas the real situation is probably that they can't.
They don't know anything either. Yeah. They're not getting that information. Nobody here is the omniscient narrator. Right. I mean, we know more than any of these people far and away at this point, especially because we've gone back in time. Right. This is not one of those situations where we're getting the story as it's happening through the eyes of, let's say, Sam or, whoever is the least knowledgeable person in the scene. That's sort of that system by which Tolkien, very frequently tells us the story. But yeah, you're right. Here we know more. The warden doesn't know much. His staff might know even less. Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. In fact, the warden knows very little, and he then tells her what he knows, which is Aragorn and the other lords of the West have headed to the Morgul Vale. The other lords, let's not forget who all is with them, right? I mean, we've got Éomer, the king of Rohan. We've got Imrahil, the prince of Dol Amroth. We've got the sons of Elrond, Elladan and Elro here, along with the Grey Company. We've got Mithrandir. And then there's that other guy that so many in the city thought was a prince, Pippin. I mean, everybody thought he was some sort of hobbit nobility.
Right, because he was so overly familiar with all of the great people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe he's not a lord yet, but we'll get there. The day is long.
Yep. And the warden has some thoughts on Aragorn, who he doesn't name.
Yeah.
I wonder if he actually knows his name at this point. He just calls him a great lord and a healer. But it's very strange to the warden that a healing hand should also wield the sword.
I like that. It was an interesting insight into the warden's mindset. And he goes and recalls that ancient tradition without repeating the words that Yorith spoke. And for that, I want to actually go back to the Houses of Healing, where you were with me last year, and we read, "Then an old wife, Yorith, the eldest of the women who served in that house, looking on the fair face of Faramir, wept, for all the people loved him. And she said, 'Alas, if he should die, would that there were kings in Gondor as there were once upon a time,' they say. For it is said in old lore, the hands of the king are the hands of a healer, and so the rightful king could ever be known."
Right.
I loved that at the time. That was so great.
Yeah, I mean, my woman Yorith.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We had long and wonderful conversations.
We did. And Gandalf be like, "People are going to remember your words for a long time, lady. You nailed it."
Yes. Yeah. What I like is that the warden does seem wiser than the herb master.
Yeah.
Because he just dismissed old lore as, the text says, rhymes of old days which women still repeat without understanding. Oh, don't put him in the same room as me. And doggerel garbled in the memory of old wise. Well, don't if you want him to actually walk out again.
That's what I'm saying. I think that would be I would pay for that.
Yeah. Ooh. Anyway, enough of the mansplaination, because that herdmaster really...
Yeah,
I know how I felt about the herdmaster. We talked about him previously.
We gave him enough air. We're done. He doesn't need any more oxygen. Yeah.
No. Okay. But the warden, understandably perhaps, complains about the difficult task of fixing the holes made in people by those who also wield the sword.
Yeah.
Noting that even without war, there are already enough problems and hurts that happen to people that result in a need for the services of the houses of healing.
And that, of course, leads to one of my favorite lines from Éowyn. I just love the way this comes out of her mouth. It needs but one foe to breed a war, not two. And those who have not swords can still die upon them.
Yeah, that is a great line.
It really is. Look, there's a possibility that to modern readers, especially those of us who maybe not experienced that sort of conflict, not lived in a country at that state of conflict, this can come off as a bit cynical, but it's 100% accurate here, isn't it?
It really is. After all, it's not like Gondor sought out this war with Mordor.
No.
What were they supposed to do? Just hand over the keys to the Witch King and say, yeah, we'll be out by tomorrow morning?
Yeah, just give us a chance to find a rental space for our gear. Yeah.
Mordor wasn't here for the property values or great views of the Anduin or even Lebensraum, to bring up a primary world historical reference that Tolkien would absolutely have recognized.
100%.
Yeah, they were here to utterly destroy mankind.
Yeah, that's what she means. One foe is all it takes.
Yes. Okay, so getting back to Éowyn and her chat with the warden, she asks, I'm guessing it's rhetorically, whether the warden would prefer the people of Gondor be out gathering his medicinal herbs while Sauron is building armies.
Ask me why I allowed you to say that line with medicinal herbs. I don't know why I did. I should have absolutely taken away any opportunity for you to use that consonant.
I'd just like to point out that Alan just said herbs.
I was quoting you.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're just going to record that part and send it out as
and play it over and over. You're going to hear that in your dreams.
Oh no. So Éowyn rather subtly shifts gears. It's not what makes for good national policy in the face of war. She shifts this to being a very personal viewpoint. It is not always a good thing, doctor, to be physically healed. And on the flip side of that coin, it is not always a bad thing to die in battle, even if it's painful.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, she just watched her king, her uncle, the man she loved as a father, Theoden, die on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And she'll mention him and his death specifically later in this episode. But in fact, she says if it was allowed, she would choose that battlefield death over the physical healing of her body. Now, come on, what do we think of that? Why does she say it's not always a good thing to be physically healed?
To be alive, but to not have that chance to die honorably. There's such a warrior ethos. And I want to point out that it's Rohirric, it seems. It's very sort of, again, Rohirrim modeled after the Old English. I think there's a little bit of that northern spirit going on there. But especially with Éowyn particularly, I think she really feels that sense of, I don't want to have to live like these other women have to live. I don't want to, this is not who I am. I am a shield maiden. Yes. I am not a wet nurse. I am not a farmer's wife. I am a shield maiden. That is who I am. It is who I was born to be. And anything that prevents me from living that out and accomplishing the goals of that is a hurdle to be overcome. And so for her, the last thing she wants is to be physically healed if it means she will lose the chance to have that death on the battlefield.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, let's think back to 5-6 days before this, when she was on the Pelennor field and she was battling the Witch King. She was allowed to be Dernhelm.
Yes.
She was able to be Dernhelm. She'd made that choice to let the Dernhelm out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But this was a moment that she had looked for, that moment where she could do a great deed.
Yes.
And then, if necessary, die while doing it.
She would have had no problem. If that's how it ended, as long as she took care of the Witch King, she would have been 100% content. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, talk about a great deed, right?
Boy, you're not kidding.
But here she is in the Houses of Healing. She's been stuffed back into a dress. She is Éowyn again.
Yeah.
And what she's anticipating is that cage. Here
Oh,
comes
boy.
that cage.
And we
Yeah.
will definitely talk about that cage because she uses that word again coming up.
Yes, exactly. So when she says it's not always a good thing to be physically healed, she's been physically healed, and here she is being stuffed right back into being what she didn't want to be.
Yes.
That's what she's anticipating.
Yeah.
Right?
And not unreasonably, right? I mean, because all the other guys have gone off to battle.
Again.
The world's going to end here, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. The men have gone off to battle again, and they've left me behind again.
Mm-hmm.
This time a little more understandably, given that she was unconscious for, a few days.
Yeah, sure. Good
let's
reason.
all wait for Éowyn, and then, Frodo and Sam get to the mountain, and oh no, they're spotted because no. But yeah, it's definitely the way she's seeing this is that threat of the cage. And boy,
yes.
we will definitely get to the cage here after the break. Now, we'll get back to Éowyn's methodical dismantling of the Warden in just a bit, but first we wanted to remind you there's a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony podcast than just Sara and me.
Oh yeah, the PPP has an amazing listener community. They're always coming up with great questions and discussions across all our social media spaces. Check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
Yeah, on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony podcast. You can follow the page to get the news and episode releases, but I think you're going to want to join the group, and then you can get in some really great discussions.
Oh, absolutely. But if you prefer Reddit, find us there at r/PrancingPonyPod. On Twitter and Instagram, we're simply at PrancingPonyPod.
And if you want daily Tolkien content, please check out Today's Tolkien Times on YouTube and all your favorite podcast apps. It's my new short format daily show with everything from Mailbag Mondays to Silmarillion Saturdays. Be sure to check it out at youtube.com/@TolkienTimes and follow @TolkienTimes on all your social media.
Great, but for now, though, let's get back to Éowyn and her utter destruction of the Warden.
All right.
Alan, do you want to pick up where I left off?
I will. The Warden looked at her. Tall she stood there, her eyes bright in her white face, her right hand clenched as she turned and gazed out of his window that opened to the east. He sighed and shook his head. After a pause, she turned to him again. "Is there no deed to do?" she said. "Who commands in this city?" "I do not rightly know," he answered. "Such things are not my care. There is a marshal over the riders of Rohan, and the Lord Hurin, I am told, commands the men of Gondor. But the Lord Faramir is by right the steward of the city." "Where can I find him?" "In this house, lady. He was sorely hurt, but is now set again on the way to health. But I do not know." "Will you not bring me to him? Then you will know." I'm trying to say that with a straight face, but man, she just shuts him down, and then it's cut scene. We move on to the next one. So here
Love
we go.
that. Yep, go on, Éowyn.
I know. The Lord Faramir was walking alone in the garden of the Houses of Healing, and the sunlight warmed him, and he felt life run new in his veins. But his heart was heavy, and he looked out over the walls eastward. And coming, the Warden spoke his name, and he turned and saw the Lady Éowyn of Rohan, and he was moved with pity, for he saw that she was hurt, and his clear sight perceived her sorrow and unrest. "My lord," said the Warden, "here is the Lady Éowyn of Rohan. She rode with the king and was sorely hurt and dwells now in my keeping. But she is not content, and she wishes to speak to the steward of the city." "Do not misunderstand him, lord," said Éowyn. "It is not lack of care that grieves me. No houses could be fairer for those who desire to be healed. But I cannot lie in sloth, idle, caged. I looked for death in battle, but I have not died, and battle still goes on." At a sign from Faramir, the Warden bowed and departed. "What would you have me do, lady?" said Faramir. "I also am a prisoner of the healers." He looked at her, and being a man whom pity deeply stirred, it seemed to him that her loveliness amid her grief would pierce his heart. And she looked at him and saw the grave tenderness in his eyes, and yet knew, for she was bred among men of war, that here was one whom no rider of the mark would outmatch in battle. Okay, short reading, but lots there.
Oh, yes, indeed. So we transition back to the Warden, who we see looking at Éowyn, apparently evaluating her and her words, and in part, maybe her challenge to a possible pacifist philosophy.
Maybe. It does give us a chance briefly to see her through his eyes. Tall, bright eyes, white face, with the right hand clenched and looking out a window to the east, of course. And it's worth pointing out what Hammond and Skull mention here. As originally written and set in type, these words read, her left hand clenched.
Oops.
Yeah, I know. Tolkien recorded an emendation, they say, changing this to her right hand because, of course, Éowyn's shield arm, her left, had been broken in her fight against the Witch King.
Yep. And Hammond and Skull go on to say that, evidently in attempting to make the change, the typesetters deleted left without inserting right. So,
oops.
Yeah. So her hand was corrected to her right hand, but not until the 2005 edition.
Wow.
That's a bit of a long time for that fix to be made, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you'd expect, okay, they'd catch that before the second edition, but they didn't catch that until Hammond and Skull went through with that fine-tooth comb and made sure that everything was right. My goodness, that is a long time. So Tolkien gets this next bit down cold. The Warden clearly does not approve of Éowyn's wish to go into battle and choose death, right? I mean, this is a healer. He doesn't get that. That's not where he's from. He sighed and shook his head.
Yeah.
He might as well have clicked his tongue or rolled his eyes while he was at it. Am I reading this right as him being dismissive towards Éowyn here?
Yeah, but if he rolled his eyes at her, she would be grabbing the nearest sword and relieving him of said eyes.
She really would. I mean, even if this is at best just an expression of pity, like, oh, poor girl, it's still condescending.
Yeah, it is a little bit condescending. But let's go back to the fact that the Warden is a doctor.
That's true.
And, the last thing he wants is, the last thing any doctor wants is their patient making themselves more unwell by refusing to listen to the professional voice.
And so going out to die, right? I want to go out and suffer battlefield wounds and die a painful death. Yeah.
Sigh. Yes. Well, we'll just put you back together, lady, but, whatever.
It's your medical bill. Yeah.
Yeah. But it does come off a little bit dismissive. But again, let's just think of this from Éowyn's point of view. This is what she's had from men all her life.
Yeah. She's going to see that. She's going to certainly hear it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So after staring out that east-facing window, and yes, that'll come up again too, she turns back to him and clarifies what it is she's looking for. Is there a deed that she can accomplish?
Oh, we were just talking about that. She did a great deed, and that is what she's looking to do again. A deed, a great deed. And there's also a bit of, I'd like to speak to your manager here, if I can say that. But who is in command here? It's entirely understandable, right? The Warden is not giving her satisfaction. He's not able to tell her what she wants to know. So she's like, all right, I need your supervisor.
Yeah. And it's a question that the Warden doesn't really know how to answer. So he starts throwing out the identities of the various authorities. He wants to still seem like he has some authority here. So he's like, give out the names, but he doesn't have any answers.
And it doesn't really matter to him. He's going to do his job no matter who that's in charge of the city. He doesn't, his job is the same.
Yeah. So he throws out the identities of the various authorities, including a marshal over the riders of Rohan.
Oh, is there really? Yeah, I wonder who he is.
Do you think Éowyn knows this person?
Yeah, I think so.
And by the way, this was a captain until the second edition of 1965.
That actually makes sense. In a way, that would be, I think, the natural way for the Warden to speak. If he doesn't know the word marshal, he's going to say a captain, a leader. Marshal being a word that seems to be something we see more often with the Rohirrim rather than, it's not a word we ever hear with like the Prince of Dol Amroth and his soldiers on horse, right? His cavalry. So, yeah. Then there's the guy with the coolest name of all in The Lord of the Rings. I got to say, I absolutely love the guy. Hurin, the Warden of the Keys. And he's got the coolest name and the coolest title. Who are you? I'm the Warden of the Keys. I mean, just, wow.
As he brings out this enormous bunch that's rattling by his hip,
Yeah, I'm thinking it's like,
I have lots of keys.
Need a key? I'm Warden of the Keys. If we go back to the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, we read that when the fighting waxed furious on the fields, the footmen of Gondor fought against the legions of Morgul along the walls. And then we read this. But the horsemen rode eastward to the succor of Éomer, Hurin the Tall, Warden of the Keys, and the Lord of Lasarnach, that would be Forlong, and Hirluin of the Green Hills, and Prince Imrahil the Fair with his knights all about him.
And alas, poor Forlong.
I know, and poor Hirluin.
Well, yes. Yeah. And that group of horsemen pretty much saved Éomer, as the next paragraph tells us. Not too soon came their aid to the Rohirrim, for fortune had turned against Éomer, and his fury had betrayed him.
Yeah.
But it's the Lord Faramir that's really in charge. Those other guys are assistant managers at best, I think we can
Shift
call them.
leaders, maybe. Yeah, I don't know, something. Yeah. So Éowyn's like, all right, fine. That's the guy I need to talk to. Where is he? Because, now that you've finally given me a name, I want to go talk to this guy. Well, of course, he's here in the hospital. He's hurt pretty badly, but he's on the mend,
Yeah, but how about you take me to him?
Now.
I mean, just stop your yabbering and take me to this person who might actually be able to tell me something. And I really do admire Éowyn's take no prisoners, won't put up with being put off approach here.
Yeah. And again, I think she's, like you've said before, she's used to this, but she doesn't want to take it anymore. Mm-hmm. And she's going to be, very forceful. And I admire it as well. So that's when we get that cut scene that literally made me laugh, because she's just like, shut up and take me to the guy. And then boom, Tolkien's like, cue scene change. We're in the garden. Faramir's walking along in the sunlight, and he is also looking to the east. And again, that's a theme that will continue. But the text says he has a heavy heart.
Yeah, and here we got what you described as the meet cute for Faramir and Éowyn.
Yes.
And it's facilitated unknowingly by the Warden of the Houses of Healing. Mm-hmm. So he calls Faramir's name, and when he turns around, he sees Éowyn. But let's just examine his first reaction. He's moved with pity.
It isn't said specifically moved with pity for her specifically. Like there's pity. I don't know. Yeah. I want to somehow.
It's not like, oh, look at that poor, pathetic woman.
Yeah.
It's not that kind of pity.
No, it is not that kind of pity. And that's what I wanted to really try to hammer home. And you got it in half the words I would have used. And I want folks to keep that pity in mind, because pity comes up later in this love story. And it's very, very significant, especially in its removal, shall we say, which we'll get to next week. His pity, though, isn't based solely on her injury either. It's not like, that broken arm, that's a shame. What's a nice girl like you doing at a hospital like this? I mean, this is not lame stuff. This is based on his perception, and it's an accurate perception, of her sorrow and her unrest.
God, he is a sensitive guy, isn't he?
He's very perceptive. We're going to see that over and over. Oh, it's great.
Yes, and the Warden introduces her, the Lady Éowyn of Rohan, who had ridden with King Theoden. She was injured and is in my care.
But she's not happy and wants to speak to my manager, and that's you. I'm going to pass on my problem patient to you. But Éowyn, of course, quickly, as in immediately says, look, this isn't about poor care. It's not like the Warden isn't doing a good job. It's not like his staff isn't taking great care of me. They really are.
Yes, yeah, far from complaining about the standard of care. She's saying if you want to be healed, this is a great place for it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's better in every sense than anything they might have had in Meduseld.
I would imagine. I mean, Gondor's got to be a little more advanced. They would probably have more access to old knowledge, ancient methods of treatment that have worked. That's kind of how I'm picturing it, as a slightly more advanced civilization, if you will. But of course, that isn't the point. It isn't healing that she wants, she says. She tells Faramir she is not able. I cannot lie around here in sloth, idle, caged. Mm-hmm. And that's where I really want to go back to the Grey Company for a moment. Aragorn, good man, not so great at reading Éowyn, tells her basically she has to stay behind. And while I got to read this last season when I was going through the chapter with Dawn, I really wanted Sara to read it this time. So take it away.
Oh, and I do love this little bit here.
I thought you might.
And she answered, all your words are but to say, you are a woman and your part is in the house. But when the men have died in battle and honour, you have leave to be burned in the house, for the men will need it no more. But I am of the house of Eorl, and not a serving woman. I can ride and wield blade, and I do not fear either pain or death. What do you fear, lady? He asked. A cage, she said. to stay behind bars until use and old age accept them, and all chance of doing great deeds is gone beyond recall or desire.
Oh, I love that phrase. That is such a great reading, and thank you. I just got to sit there and listen and just soak it in.
Thank you for letting me, because lovely.
And I caught something, I think, this time for the first time, really maybe ever. The way she draws that distinction between the cage and the great deeds, to stay behind bars until use and old age accept them. Remember, we talked earlier about her not wanting to necessarily be physically healed, to seek death on the battlefield, doing a great deed. Old age is what would accept the bars of the cage. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want to get to old age. She wants to do the great deed and to die on the battlefield. To her, having to be in that cage until that old age point is a punishment she cannot even conceive. Yeah. It's not her natural state. It is the exact opposite of her natural state. So, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. That idea of just being shoved into this one socially acceptable role.
Yeah.
With no opportunity to stand outside of that, with no choice at all in her life. You can hear her frustration coming through every single word that she says to Aragorn here. And as you pointed out, good guy, not so great at reading Éowyn, not like Faramir, who the first time he sees her, he immediately sees what's going on with her.
And he continues to do so the whole time. I think that's the one thing that really stands out to me about Faramir. And in fairness, it stands out to me even in The Window on the West. He sees through Frodo and Sam too, and certainly through Gollum. He's just an incredibly perceptive person. And I think that is, I know we'll see more of this next week. I think that's one of the reasons why Éowyn is able to finally come out of that depressive state, recognize what he's offering her, and accept that in joy. It's beautiful, and I can't wait to get there, but we'll get there slowly because the journey is the point. Mm-hmm. So what is it that Éowyn does not want here? She does not want to lie in sloth, idle, caged. So there's the cage again. And what did she ask the warden? Is there no deed to do? Which goes back to her line to Aragorn, all chance of doing great deeds, gone beyond recall or desire. Folks, Éowyn is being 100% clear here. And Faramir, well, he listens better than Aragorn, even if he can't do a whole lot more quite yet.
Yeah, but that listening, actually hearing her.
Yes.
That feels to me like that's more than she's ever had before. It's one of the most important things about Faramir. He actually hears what she says.
Yeah.
And listens to not just what she's telling him, but also what he perceives in her.
Exactly. What she's not quite saying with her words, but what he's able to observe. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't want us to miss this line. I looked for death in battle, but I have not died, and battle still goes on.
Whoa.
So she's got a goal. Now, it might not be a goal that we can identify with, or the Doctor, but she is still fixated on it, which is to die in battle.
I looked for death in battle, but I have not died. That's wow. But I have not died is so powerful. Just that one phrase.
Yes.
That's what she was seeking. And that, to her, that is honor. That is valiant. And she was denied this by Theoden. She was denied it by Aragorn. And now she is working to ensure she's not denied it again.
Yes. Yeah. Because it wouldn't be quite so bad if all the battle was over.
Right.
Well, I've done my great deed. Battle is over. Victory is won. Okay. Yeah,
but
I mean, she's still got to deal with what happens after the war.
Well, yeah.
But battle's still going on, and she's stuck at home again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure from her perspective, she's not really processing the fact that it made sense, that they could not wait for her to get healthy, and that she is too far behind to catch up. Right. I mean, right now, that's not going to comfort her.
No, not at all. But Faramir, again, being Mr. Sensitive, he subtly dismisses the warden, who very smartly gets out. Good decision,
yes,
warden.
Very wise.
And then Faramir turns to speak to Éowyn for the first time. He hears her. He hears what she's telling him. So he asks, what is it you want me to do?
Yeah.
I am listening. I hear your desires. So tell me what I can do for you.
Exactly. He wants to know, okay, I hear you. You're understood. What is the action that I can take to help remedy that, to help answer
Yes.
that concern? And he does have to phrase that in a particular context. And in this case, it's the context of him also being a prisoner of the healers.
Yes.
We go back to that bit about how she's supposed to lay in bed for another 7 days. We don't have a precise date for Faramir, but Aragorn and Gandalf did tell the Warden that these two should remain there and still be tended with care for many days.
Right. And he looks at her again, and we're reminded that pity deeply stirs him. So it's no surprise that pity was his initial feeling when perceiving her sorrow and unrest.
Yeah, like we talked about a little bit ago, recall the time we spent with Faramir in the window on the west. Over and over again, we see how deeply observant and perceptive he is. And as he looks at her, we get a view of his emotions, right? Her loveliness amid her grief would pierce his heart. This isn't just about how pretty she is. I mean, yes, she is pretty, and that is something that he says. He makes it very clear that her beauty is something. But this is a recognition of her beauty amid her grief.
Yes.
He sees that.
Yeah. He feels it, doesn't he?
Yes,
I mean,
he
he's
does.
really empathetic.
That's exactly the word I'm thinking. The only way you can be that perceptive, I think, is with a healthy dose of empathy.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we switch back to Éowyn's viewpoint for a moment as she sees him first. And I love this phrase, the grave tenderness in his eyes.
Oh, man.
Right. Faramir is a serious man, and his tenderness is not a game.
No.
It's a part of who he is, right?
Yeah, it really
But
is.
despite that tenderness, that gentle spirit that she perceives, maybe she's just as perceptive as Faramir.
Yeah, maybe.
This is someone who is equal to, or maybe better than, any of the Rohirrim.
That is such a blink and you miss it moment. I know there's a lot of those, but this is one I don't know that I'd caught until maybe the previous time that I'd read this chapter. And I want to linger on that for just a minute. She sees him, and in this very brief interchange, and it is very brief, this is very early in their conversations, she sees and frankly knows correctly, not even Éomer or Erkenbrand or Elfhelm would get the better of Faramir in battle. I mean, it might be a dead heat that they might wear each other out, but they're not going to defeat Faramir. Faramir is a warrior, and she sees that, and she knows how competent he is already just from observing him.
Yes.
That's something.
There's something in her that calls to something in him.
Exactly.
And it's almost immediate, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's the warrior in her, and like the text says, because she was bred among, these men of war. She knows what a warrior looks like. She knows how a warrior carries himself. She knows all of these things, and she recognizes them. And Faramir's like, oh, this guy's bad. Like, even Éomer, it's going to be a fun fight to watch, but they're just going to fight to a draw.
Yeah. Which is, that's quite the thing.
Yeah, it is. Éomer's king, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
The Rohirrim are no joke, and neither is Faramir, and I think that's the point. And tremendous warrior. And I think it's easy for us as readers of The Lord of the Rings to look over that because we think of Boromir as being the greater warrior. Yeah, he's the greater field marshal. He's the greater general, but he's not necessarily the greater warrior. He's at least as great, I imagine. I can't imagine that he's less of a warrior than Faramir, but I don't know.
There's more to being a great warrior than just your prowess with a sword.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Boromir and Faramir were probably at least equally good. In fact, maybe Boromir was better with wielding a sword. Who knows?
Maybe. Yeah.
But the kind of attitude that Faramir has towards war, towards battle,
yes,
I think makes him the greater man in many ways.
Oh, certainly.
A much more thoughtful person, someone who's actually far better fitted to be the steward of Gondor than ever Boromir would have been, in my opinion.
100%. And also far better suited to end up being Éowyn's husband. I can't imagine her marrying Boromir.
Oh, good grief. That's like, marrying the jock, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Boromir, as we called him for so long.
Oh, good grief. She would make mincemeat of him.
Now somebody's putting together a fanfic on that, but I don't want anything to do with it. Instead, we're going to move on, and I'm going to have you pick up exactly where I left off.
Okay. What do you wish? He said again. If it lies in my power, I will do it. I would have you command this warden and bid him let me go, she said. But though her words were still proud, her heart faltered, and for the first time she doubted herself. She guessed that this tall man, both stern and gentle, might think her merely wayward, like a child that has not the firmness of mind to go on with a dull task to the end. "I myself am in the Warden's keeping," answered Faramir, "nor have I yet taken up my authority in the city. But had I done so, I should still listen to his counsel, and should not cross his will in matters of his craft, unless in some great need." "But I do not desire healing," she said. "I wish to ride to war like my brother Éomer, or better, like Theoden the king, for he died and has both honour and peace." "It is too late, lady, to follow the captains, even if you had the strength," said Faramir. "But death in battle may come to us all yet, willing or unwilling. You will be better prepared to face it in your own manner if while there is still time you do as the healer commanded. You and I, we must endure with patience the hours of waiting." She did not answer, but as he looked at her it seemed to him that something in her softened, as though a bitter frost were yielding at the first faint presage of spring. A tear sprang in her eye and fell down her cheek like a glistening raindrop. Her proud head drooped a little. Then quietly, more as if speaking to herself than to him, "But the healers would have me lie abed 7 days yet," she said, "and my window does not look eastward." Her voice was now that of a maiden, young and sad. Faramir smiled, though his heart was filled with pity. "Your window does not look eastward?" he said. "That can be amended. In this I will command the Warden. If you will stay in this house in our care, lady, and take your rest, then you shall walk in this garden in the sun as you will, and you shall look east, whither all our hopes have gone. And here you will find me, walking and waiting, and also looking east. It would ease my care if you would speak to me, or walk at whiles with me." Then she raised her head and looked him in the eyes again, and a colour came in her pale face. "How should I ease your care, my lord?" she said, "and I do not desire the speech of living men." "Would you have my plain answer?" he said. "I would."
This is getting good. I
Mm-hmm.
love this. This is such a great chapter. Faramir and Éowyn have always been one of my highlights of the entire story. And I think this time around, as I'm getting to do that deep dive, it's becoming even more so.
Yeah, they've already had a better conversation than she ever had with Aragorn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, they've had a conversation as opposed to a lecture. I mean,
Yes.
you know? So we open again with Faramir clarifying his question, right? When he first asked it, "What would you have me do, lady? I also am prisoner of the healers." Maybe that could have come across almost like a shrug of the shoulders. "Well, what do you want me to do, lady?" So he makes this very clear, right? He repeats the question, basically, "Tell me what you wish, and if I can make it happen, I will do so. Your wish is my command." Really.
Yep, so Éowyn proudly speaks what she wants.
Yep.
Tell that warden to let me go, to let me leave. But proud and bold as Éowyn is, doubt creeps into her mind a bit as she speaks. She wonders what Faramir might think of her. Is she being like a child with a short attention span?
That's really a cute little thing, right? I mean, it's like, God, is she like a wayward child? I have to wonder, though, has Éowyn, has she ever really cared what anybody else thinks of her? I mean, I think this is kind of interesting. Like, she strikes me as the kind of person who doesn't care what you think of her. But she's suddenly struck with, "I wonder what he thinks of me."
Yeah.
Which is insightful.
I don't want to look bad in front of this pretty man.
Yeah, he's very tall. He's very stern. And we get that repeat of what she thinks of him, right? Both stern and gentle. It isn't the same juxtaposition, but I really want to point stern and gentle out with grave tenderness. There's a lot of similarity there. A lot of that seriousness, but that softness. I love it.
But, if we talk about Faramir's character, he has that perfect balance.
He does.
That's why, in so many ways, he is a better man than Boromir. I'm not saying Boromir is a bad man.
No, of course not. Boromir's redemption arc is one of the most beautiful things in the entire story.
Exactly. Yeah. But Faramir, in many ways, is a better man because he has that balance between the stern and the gentle, as Tolkien himself says. That idea that you can be both strong and powerful and, wield your sword and all that kind of thing, but also be sensitive and empathetic. You know, I know.
A lesson for modern man, one might say.
Right, exactly. Yeah, none of your toxic masculinity, says Faramir.
No, that's right. You don't have toxic masculinity is just incomplete masculinity. You know, you don't have to have the one without the other. They're not incompatible. And Faramir shows that. You can add the tenderness to that greatness. You can add that gentleness to the sternness. And all that does is make you better.
Yes. And let's not forget that Tolkien felt Faramir to be the closest to him.
Yes.
Or he closest to Faramir.
Well, right, yeah. He says, except for the fact that Faramir is much braver than I am. I think what he says to Tolkien, to Christopher Tolkien. Yeah.
Or I think that Tolkien's being fairly modest there, of course. He's gone through some things in his life that he's had to be brave about, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
But the fact that he sees himself in Faramir and that Faramir is this character that he really holds up high, in some ways, even maybe as high, if not higher than Aragorn for some things.
Right? I think so.
Yeah, for some things. That Tolkien is very into this idea of a really, truly great man balances out.
Yes.
Right. Aragorn does as well, though. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about this later in the chapter. You know, Aragorn is a warrior and a healer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important.
It becomes crucial.
We'll get to that.
We will. I know this chapter has 4 episodes on it. We're going to have plenty of time on those things. It's a good thing we did it into 4. I have a feeling if we did 3, they would have been 2.5 hours long each.
Oh boy, then we'd have had
no promise they still won't be that, by the way.
Anyway, so back to our couple.
Yes.
Faramir doesn't say no, but he doesn't exactly jump at her bidding and call the Warden back with new orders, does he?
No, he doesn't. You're right.
No. In fact, he rather sensibly points out a couple of things. First of all, he says, I don't yet have the authority to command him.
Right. I mean, I've not officially accepted the position of steward, left vacant by Denethor's sudden resignation.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah. But even if I did, and I like this is again that balance thing. Yes, I could be a leader and do these things, but a good leader listens to the people underneath him who are experts in their field. I would not gainsay the Warden, as he says, unless in some great need. There's a part of me that thinks he's asking Éowyn, tell me what that great need is. You know, give me a reason why I should countermand what the Warden is asking.
Yeah. And if so, Éowyn doesn't take the bait.
No, she
Instead,
doesn't tell him.
she goes back to the idea of not crossing the Warden's will in matters of his craft, which is medical care, right? Healing. And after all, she says, I don't want his professional care. I don't want to be healed. Exactly. I mean, she's really now saying out loud all of these things that are boiling within her.
Yes.
I don't want to be well.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. You don't need to have a great need to gainsay what the Warden wants, because I don't want anything that's in his field of expertise. I don't care about being healed. I want to ride off to war like my brother. No, wait. I want to ride off to war like my uncle because he died. And this, I think, is really crucial. She envies Theoden, I think, more than Éomer even, because of both his honor and the fact that he's now at peace.
Oh, now that is so important.
It is huge.
I mean, honor is, well, we know how important Éowyn feels honor is. We know that. We see that when we look back at her conversation with Aragorn in the Grey Company. But this reference to both honor and peace, that makes me realize she hasn't had peace in quite some time.
And of course she hasn't. I mean, you think about her journey before this, right? Like we've observed before, Aragorn says, no, you can't come. Theoden says, no, you can't leave. But before that, she was basically under the thumb of Wormtongue the entire time.
Yeah.
She has not had peace in years, quite possibly ever since Wormtongue came into the court, at the very least.
Right. But I mean, think about all the things that she has gone through in her still very young life.
Very young life. She's only 24 now, people. Let's keep that in mind. She is not old by any stretch of the imagination.
Lord, no.
That line about her being young and maiden, she kind of is. She's 24, folks. Yeah. She's young.
Yeah, exactly. But in that time, she's lost both her father and her mother.
Yep.
She has lost her cousin.
Yes,
Theodred,
who was essentially a brother to her after her adoption. Yeah,
exactly. And then something happened to her uncle, her father figure.
Oh, my
He seems
goodness.
to have kind of withered, and he's
Yeah.
not himself, and she doesn't know what's going on. And it's scary because, there are orcs everywhere and people are dying. And what is up with the king? And now we have Wormtongue as well, creeping and watching and making like that police song. Every step you take.
Every step you take, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
They don't have restraining orders in Rohan. That's not a legal tool that they have available to them. Yeah.
So all of this, and then becoming more and more frustrated with the fact that she can't do anything. She couldn't do anything about Wormtongue. She couldn't do anything about Theoden's whatever the heck happened
she had
to
no
him.
power to solve that.
She couldn't do anything. And she must have felt so powerless.
Yeah. Oh, so peace.
Yeah, peace.
Honor and peace.
Yeah, and
big
in many
addition.
ways you can see, well, that's why she wanted death on the battlefield. It's as much for honor and for peace.
Yeah, for a release from all of that she's been enduring for very, very much, most of her life, really. Certainly since probably the death of her parents.
Yes, yeah.
And Faramir, though, does make some valid points in his response, though, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. He says, first, even if you were healthy and could ride, you're now far too late to catch up to the captains of the West. They're now days ahead of you.
Seriously. I mean, okay, you don't have to set up camp for hundreds of soldiers, but you're still never going to catch them.
Yes, exactly. And second, death and honor, you say? Well, death in battle is quite possibly still on the menu, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you better be prepared. And you're going to be much better prepared if you are healed, if you are rested, if you, do what the healer tells you.
Right.
Rather than demanding to go out now and you're not really in fit state. If you recuperate, then if the time comes, if the orcs appear again, then, maybe you'll be much better prepared to give battle.
That's true. And they will if the Lords of the West get defeated. I mean, look, the only way that we're going to be facing battle here in Minas Tirith is if Aragorn and Éomer and all those other people get killed. If they die in battle, then we will have to face what comes next. If they are victorious or something else happens, which Faramir knows about, then, they won't have to face battle. But he adds a small line here that I want to point out because I think it's something really important. He says they have to be patient and endure this waiting, but this is what's key. He doesn't. Let me just address it. He says, you and I, we must do this. And it is so different from what Éowyn has heard before, from Theoden, from Aragorn, even from Éomer. In those cases, it was never we, it was you. You have to stay behind. You can't come with us. You need to do this. Faramir is able to identify, and partly because he is in the same shoes, I'm sure he wants to get out and do something. But I think this helps her feel heard. And not just be heard, but to sense that, to know that.
That's exactly it. And as he looks at her while he's saying these things, he feels, again, he just feels what's going on inside her. He feels like she's softened just a bit.
Yeah.
Now, why has this happened? Is this a result of her earlier observation of his being stern but gentle? The doubt that crept into her mind about whether she was acting like a child? Is this more likely a result of his gentle way of treating her? Yeah, maybe all of those, but I actually think it might also be because she feels like he actually listened to her. Yes. And he responded to her as one equal to another, rather than dismissing her as a woman whose place is not on the battlefield.
That's true.
Who should not be concerned with such things.
Yeah, he never says that, does he? He never even remotely comes close to saying, well, what do you mean battle? You didn't belong in battle. You're a pretty thing. You should just be on somebody's arm. You shouldn't be in, fighting the enemy. He never says anything like that.
I feel like if he had responded in the way that Aragorn spoke to her in the chapter of the Great Company, that I think she would have remained proud
fully locked.
and and confrontational. But because he empathizes, because he hears her and he responds the way he does, as you pointed out, he says we.
Yes.
I think, well, where can she go with that? She just kind of goes, huh.
Yeah, she deflates a little. Yeah,
she totally deflates.
Yeah. Whatever the reason, right? I mean, and I think you're right. I think it does have a lot to do with feeling heard. The way in which Tolkien describes this change in her is so lovely, isn't it? as
Yes.
though a bitter frost were yielding at the first faint presage of spring. And then he carries that word picture a little further. Like a frost yielding, we get this drop of water that appears like rain, this tear that falls down her cheek as her pride falls as well.
Right, now I want to take us right back to the first time we meet Éowyn.
Yeah.
When Aragorn sees her, he sees ice.
Yes. Oh, that's absolutely right. Great. I've forgotten about that. Yeah.
Yep. He sees the ice. He sees the frost.
Yes, he does.
But here she is with Faramir. What's the first thing that happens? The
She
frost
begins to
starts
thaw.
to melt.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's heard.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I love Tolkien so much.
I know, me too.
You know,
This
he
is
has
so
picked
great.
up. He has picked up an image that he used way back in the Two Towers, and he's carried it right through to here. I just think that's glorious. I
all the
really
way
do.
back at the beginning of the when we first meet Éowyn, before we even know her name.
Yes.
Wow.
Man. Yep.
So good.
I know. It's what can you do with such greatness? You know. But when she speaks again, it's under her breath. I have to wonder if she'd have preferred Faramir not even hear her next statement.
I know.
It's like she's kind of talking to herself. It's not a question. It's not a request, although he does take it that way, as we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't want to have to be on bed rest for another week.
I know.
And her window doesn't look towards the east. And Aragorn.
All right. She doesn't say that part, but yeah.
Yeah.
Faramir, our hero for the day, finally sees a request, though, like you said, it's not even a request. It goes back to that your wish is my command sort of thing. He finally hears something and he can do something about. Oh, your window doesn't face east. Well, let me solve that for you. He calls the warden. You know, I can at least make the warden do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my hero.
Little things, you know.
And he adds a little bit more too. So a little bit of, extra sweetener, if you like.
Yeah.
If you will stay here and rest as the warden wants you to, then you can walk here whenever you want and look east, the direction of all of our hopes.
In fact, I'll be here too. He adds,
totally
also
coincidentally.
Yeah, just from time to time, I might be here as well, also looking east. And I love what comes next. It's the gentleness again, but it's also really just transparency. It would ease my care, he says, if you and I could talk, or maybe if you would even walk with me.
And it's a deed.
Yeah.
You could ease my care.
That is a good catch. I hadn't even caught that either. This idea that there's a great deed to be done. It's not slaying the Witch King.
No.
But it's a deed.
But it's helping somebody who needs her help, or would benefit from her help anyway.
Yes.
I mean, he's honest about what her spending time with him would do for him, but he doesn't put any obligation on her to do it.
Right.
He doesn't ask her to. He just says, it would ease my care if you did, and it totally leaves that next step to her. I mean, look at him, recognizing that she should have the choice.
Notice that he said, if you'll stay here and rest, then you can walk here. He doesn't say, if you'll hang out with me, you can walk here.
Yes.
He puts the condition to be if you get better, if you do what the warden wants you to do and take the time to get healed, then you'll have this freedom to come to the garden and look east. He could have easily said, if you'll come here and hang out with me and talk to me, you can come here to the garden anytime you want.
Yeah.
He does not make that conditional.
He
just
is not
says,
creeper dude.
No, seriously, that's a red flag right there. He says, it would ease my care, and then leaves it up to her. He doesn't put any pressure on her. So she asks for more clarity, though, because I like her. She's not playing games. She wants to know, why would me walking with you and talking with you when we've just met like 90 seconds ago, why would that ease your care? And she adds that little bit about the speech of living men. And you just know she's put up with plenty of that. Likely, depending on when Grima showed up, going back to when she was a teenage girl, right? Before that charming Grima Wormtongue came along, I'm sure she's had sweet talkers. She is royalty in Rohan. She wants his cards on the table. No game playing at all.
Absolutely. Like, okay, why should I swipe right on you?
What are you making a reference to? I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's okay. I'm sure somebody will explain that to you.
No, I had to figure that out because when we were talking about Treebeard and the Entwives, we decided to make up a joke. There's an app called Timber. We just thought that would be really hilarious. Swipe left.
I forgot about that.
Oh, good stuff.
Be swiping extremely slowly. But anyway, I love Faramir's response. It boils down to, you really want me to just come out and say this? Because I totally will. I'm Faramir and I'm honest. So,
it really is that, isn't it?
Yeah. So, of course, she does want his honesty, and she is about to get it, too.
She sure is.
Mm-hmm. So you can pick up there and tell us all about his honesty.
All right. Then, Éowyn of Rohan, I say to you that you are beautiful. In the valleys of our hills there are flowers fair and bright, and maidens fairer still, but neither flower nor lady have I seen till now in Gondor so lovely and so sorrowful. It may be that only a few days are left ere darkness falls upon our world, and when it comes, I hope to face it steadily. But it would ease my heart if, while the sun yet shines, I could see you still. For you and I have both passed under the wings of the shadow, and the same hand drew us back. Alas, not me, Lord, she said. Shadow lies on me still. Look not to me for healing. I am a shield maiden, and my hand is ungentle. But I thank you for this at least, that I need not keep to my chamber. I will walk abroad by the grace of the steward of the city. And she did him a courtesy and walked back to the house. But Faramir, for a long while, walked alone in the garden, and his glance now strayed rather to the house than to the eastward walls. When he returned to his chamber, he called for the warden, and heard all that he could tell of the Lady of Rohan. But I doubt not, Lord, said the warden, that you would learn more from the halfling that is with us, for he was in the riding of the king, and with the lady at the end, they say. And so Merry was sent to Faramir, and while that day lasted, they talked long together, and Faramir learned much, more even than Merry put into words, and he thought that he understood now something of the grief and unrest of Éowyn of Rohan. And in the fair evening, Faramir and Merry walked in the garden, but she did not come. But in the morning, as Faramir came from the houses, he saw her, as she stood upon the walls, and she was clad all in white, and gleamed in the sun. And he called to her, and she came down, and they walked on the grass, or sat under a green tree together, now in silence, now in speech, and each day after they did likewise. Oh, my heart!
How splendidly, wonderfully gorgeous.
Isn't it? Oh, it is fantastic.
So Faramir, to his credit, lays all his cards on the table. I mean, the guy opens an extra pack of cards just to lay those on the table too.
He sure does. He says, honestly, you are beautiful, right? You're more beautiful, he says, than any flower or woman I've seen before, and I've seen a lot of really pretty flowers and really pretty women. But then he notes, and I love this because he does it without any judgment, her sorrow.
Right. So she immediately knows that he's not just looking at her pretty face. He's actually looking at her. And, that's really important.
Seeing and hearing her, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then he acknowledges the distinctly real possibility that their entire world might come crashing down in a matter of days. On the side, here's the thing that could also happen.
Yeah.
But like her, he leaves this unsaid. He hopes to face that end with a steady courage.
That's right. I mean, he knows that's who she is. She would face that end with courage as well. In the meantime, though, he says, look, while there is still a sun to be seen, it would ease my heart, and that's just restating what he said before, how it would ease my care for him to see Éowyn.
Yeah, and he ends by pointing out that they have a very significant thing in common. They have both survived encounters with the Nazgul, and they were both healed by the same person. So there's already connections there, right?
That's right. Now, at this point, I think it's safe to say this early, because he hasn't gotten any information that he hasn't, gleaned from his conversation with Éowyn. He doesn't have a clue yet about Éowyn's love interest in Aragorn. But I think he might get some clue of that in just a little bit when he chats with Merry. But for now, not so much.
Merry the gossip hound has almost certainly told him.
Even if he didn't say anything, we'll get to that. But he perceives because that's what he does. That's fair.
Exactly. And speaking of Aragorn, it's his mention of that hand that drew us back that Éowyn takes issue with. Yeah. Alas, not me, she claims.
Oh my goodness. So what do we make of her next lines? Because she's saying, no, not me. That hand may have drawn you back, but it hasn't drawn me back. Shadow lies on me still, she says. And then this line, look not to me for healing. I am a shield maiden and my hand is ungentle. I want to fast forward a little bit. I want to contrast that with where she ends up later in this chapter. She says, behold, the shadow has departed. I will be a shield maiden no longer. I will be a healer. She flips that on its head.
Yes. Yeah. Now, both mention the shadow, both mention the role of shield maiden, and both mention the role of healer or healing. Now, what I find really interesting here, right? Two things. That idea of the shadow lies on me still. She had a shadow on her before she was subject to the Black Breath.
Right.
And although Aragorn pulled her out of what the Black Breath did to her, he hasn't cured her, because there's not like a cure for it, if you like, of the shadow that she held before that. That's still with her. And we know that because of the conversation she's just had with Faramir.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So we know that she's still suffering from, we could actually name it depression.
Yeah,
couldn't we?
I think so. I don't think that's a stretch to call it that at all.
Exactly. So, yeah, the shadow thing is important. And the second thing is, she doesn't, I mean, straight away we should notice she doesn't designate healing as being beneath her or feminized or anything like that.
No, you're right.
She says, almost, I'm not worthy of that. That's not what I can do. I'm a shield maiden.
She kind of goes back to the Warden's bit about differentiating between warrior and healer, doesn't she?
Yes, exactly. She says, I'm a shield maiden. My hand is ungentle. It doesn't mean, oh, for goodness sake, I'm not a healer, because that's just what namby-pamby people do who don't go out on the battlefield. She actually, I think she's saying that I don't have that skill.
I don't have that capability. My hand is unsuited to that.
Exactly.
Because she has no problem, no qualms saying when she's above things, right? Going back to that conversation she had with Aragorn, I am no serving woman. I'm of the house of Eorl. I'm a shield maiden. So she has no problem kind of calling out those that she thinks are doing a job that is less than what she's capable of doing. Here, you're right. I'm not qualified. My hand is ungentle. It is not gentle enough to be a healer.
Right. And that is why, and I really want to talk about this in the next episode when we get to this bit.
We will.
Oh boy, buckle up, chaps. But that is why when she says, behold, the shadow has departed, I'll be a shield maiden, no longer I will be a healer, I will be unequivocal about the fact that does not mean that she is now going to just, put aside all the strength in her and kind of, I'm just going to be a wife and a mother and I'll heal people and it'll be lovely. That is not what this is about at all. No. It's a different power. It's a different strength. One that she couldn't possibly wield while she's dealing with this shadow.
It is a qualitative difference, not a quantitative difference.
Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
Boy, we will definitely be talking about that next episode. Yeah.
Boy, do I have thinky thoughts about that.
Big capital T on that. That might be an all caps thoughts.
You can hear the all caps in there?
Yeah,
Good.
I can. So Éowyn wraps up this conversation, and she sort of does, like, I'm out, right? Really quickly. She goes, okay, because I think, I'm speculating here. She doesn't respond to his comments about her beauty or anything like that, right? She doesn't say that, thank you for these kind words, nor does she say, okay, that's creepy, right? She doesn't go in either direction. But I think she's sort of eager to leave this moment and maybe absorb what has happened and be like, well, that's different. I wasn't expecting that conversation, right? So she wraps up the chat, thanks him for the permission to not have to stay in a room, and then she did him a courtesy. That, of course, a courtesy in that context, that's some act of respect. It's usually, the word curtsy comes from this word courtesy in this context. It's a variant of that word. So I'm imagining that's what she's doing here, just a quick little bend of the knee as a gesture of respect, something that wasn't always or originally feminine, by the way. I need to make that really clear. It's not, that's only what women do. But she does that courtesy and then heads back in.
Yeah. And just to bring us back to this thing about not responding to Faramir saying, oh, by the way, you're extremely beautiful. I think, let's face it, she is extremely beautiful. Oh, yeah. I'll bet she is not, that's not the first time she's heard that.
No, of course not. Of course not. Yep. She's 24 years old. She's in a warrior culture with a lot of, manly men. And I am sure that Grima is not the only one to make it clear that she is attractive.
Absolutely not. But for Éowyn, that is not enough. I mean, let's Shania this a little, because that don't impress me much, right?
Well done. Well played.
You're welcome. But I think the reason why she backs away here is because she senses, actually, there's a bit more behind this.
Yes.
You know, he's not just looking at the pretty face, he's actually seeing me, and I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, she's not used to that, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a little bit of like, okay, I need to go and kind of think through this. I don't want to be caught out here. I don't want to be thinking on my feet. I want to go to a place by myself where I can consider what just happened.
Yeah, exactly. And Faramir stayed in the garden, but his mind was very much on Éowyn and their conversation, as the text implies.
I love that. His thoughts. He's like looking back up at the houses of healing instead of the east. Oh, so cool.
Yeah, he's totally distracted by Éowyn.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I mean, it's lovely because he's immediately drawn. It's like I said a little bit ago, something in Éowyn calls to something in Faramir and vice versa. And when you get that, you know, trust me, as a happily married woman of mumble number of years.
Mumble.
Actually, it's our 25th wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Coming right up.
Congratulations.
Well, in March 2024 of this year, it will be our 25th wedding anniversary. But anyway, I digressed. The point is that when something in you calls to something in them and vice versa, it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a thing that just it's almost like you recognize that person.
Yeah.
That I'm not a great believer in love at first sight. I think that's very fictional, but I'm a great believer in connection at first sight.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And we'll see more of that. Yeah.
Yeah, Faramir wants a bit more of this connection.
He
tries
does,
to get some information from the Warden.
He Googles
her. And the Warden suggests he talks with Merry. After all, he was in the riding of the king and with the lady at the end.
More than just the end, huh?
Yeah, Merry was with the lady, with Dernhelm, for quite a few days.
So Faramir, of course, prized the little hobbit for some information, right? And a perceptive man that Faramir is, no matter what Merry tells him, Faramir is able to pick up more, right? More even than Merry put into words. Another example of how he reads people. And this is where we get him beginning to understand a little about what's causing Éowyn to feel grief and unrest. And I think that's why now we understand he is now aware of her love interest in Aragorn.
Right. Yeah. Because I think he's already more than picked up on her distress about not dying in battle, about wanting to be out there. But yeah, the Aragorn thing is that little extra information, isn't it? And of course, he's now got to deal with, I have a love rival. So
and he happens to be my king. That's a problem.
Oops. But that evening, Faramir's back in the gardens, this time with Merry. But disappointment, Éowyn doesn't come. But in the morning, though, she's there, wearing white, shining in the morning sun. Remember, they can look to the east from the garden, so she's being all lit up by the morning light.
I can just see this. What a gorgeous scene this would be.
I know. So beautiful.
Yeah.
But, you know, why doesn't Éowyn come in the evening?
Maybe just more time to think things through.
Yeah, that's what I think as well.
This is really taking her by surprise, and she's, really thinking it through.
Processing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the way the text is written, by the way, I can't quite tell if she's already in the garden or if she's on a balcony off of her room, because we get she stood upon the walls, made me think she's in the garden, but then he called to her and she came down, makes me think she's up in her room. But yeah, it's probably 6 one, half dozen of the other, really.
Right, yeah. I think I've always assumed that she was out in the garden, but on a different bit.
A split level thing, yeah. That works.
But anyway, wherever she is or was, she comes to him when he calls, and they walk and they sit and they talk and they're quiet. I love that.
Yes.
Because the person you're closest to, you should be able to be quiet with and not feel like you have to fill in the gaps. It's just as important to be able to be silent together as to talk together, right?
100%, yes.
Yeah. That's how you know that person is so connected to you, because you can just sit in silence and it's all fine. I love that.
There's no awkward silence because it's not awkward. Yeah.
Right. But look how quickly they've managed this.
I know.
Yep.
It's a daily routine. I love it.
It just becomes this daily routine, and it's
each
lovely.
day after they did likewise. I love that line. I love that. We did skip a little bit at the end because we're not going to pick up exactly there next week. We do get to see them from the Warden's perspective, and I just didn't want to read through the end of that. He's happy, right? I mean, after all, his job is to heal. So he's watching these two patients of his help each other heal from the shadow.
Yeah, because sometimes there's a limit to what the doctors can do, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. In spite of the fear and dread growing on everyone in the city during these days leading up to the 25th of March, he sees these two improving and gaining strength each day.
That's wonderful. So that way, if they all do die over at the Black Gate and the orcs come, then, they'll be able to go and make a fight of it.
Yes, exactly. That's what's important here.
That's right. But in the morning, as Barliman came from the pony, he saw it as it stood upon the walls, and it was clad all in white burlap and didn't gleam at all in the sun, nor would it come down when he called. Sara, what does Barliman have in the bag for us tonight?
Okay, so William H. writes in with a very fitting question for this chapter. He writes, "You've often pointed out on the podcast that nearly all of the romantic relationships that we read about in the Legendarium involve men marrying up. Mortal men like Aragorn, Beren, and Tuor fall in love and successfully woo elvish princesses like Arwen, Luthien, and Idril Celebrimbor. Even Thingol, the tallest elf ever in Middle-earth, still married up when he married Melian the Maya, even if he never listened to her. I mean, God forbid he should listen to the wisest woman in Middle-earth, right?
Yeah, to a Maya. Yeah, exactly.
I bet he responded to her with, "Well, actually," and then proceeded to mansplain her out of existence.
No, actually.
Anyway, William continues. "But in what is arguably the most beloved romantic relationship, I know it's your favourite, Alan, the one between Éowyn and Faramir, it's actually the reverse. Faramir is of Gondor, a country established by the faithful refugees from the downfall of Númenor, and we're explicitly told that Faramir is more Númenorian than most.
That's fair.
By some chance, the blood of Westernesse runs nearly true in Denethor," Gandalf tells Pippin, "as it does in his other son, Faramir. Faramir is of the High Men, the descendants of the Edain of the First Age. By contrast, Éowyn is of the Rohirrim, of the Men of Twilight, or the Middlemen. He's marrying down. Given that big difference between their relationship and nearly all other romantic relationships in the Legendarium, why do we like this one so much?" Okay, Alan, over to you to start.
All right. Well, okay, you make some decent points in the sense that, yes, Faramir is more Númenorian than most. But I really want to be careful about reading Éowyn as truly of the middlemen. Being of the Rohirrim is better than all the other middlemen, let's be honest, and especially her line. We're going to get to that. Éowyn is, of course, a member of the House of Eorl, Rohan's royal house. Now, granted, she's of the third line of... she's at the end of the second line because Éomer is the start of the third line. Each time a king dies without an heir, they move on to a sibling or nephew of the king. So that's why Éomer starts the third line. So she's part of this third line. But, by Rohirric standards, her ancestry is impeccable. And let's talk about that because she's actually got some Númenorian blood herself. Éowyn's grandmother, Morwen Steelsheen, was from Gondor and of Númenorian descent. In fact, her father was originally from Belfalas. He was a descendant unnamed of a former prince of Dol Amroth, and thus actually a kinsman of Prince Imrahil. Now, in the appendix called, hold on to your excitement, Númenorian Linear Measures. Oh no, we're going to read some Númenorian Linear Measures tonight. I can't wait.
Give me some of that.
That's right. So that appendix is, it's an appendix to the disaster of the Gladden Fields in Unfinished Tales, by the way. So in that appendix, we read, the Rohirrim were generally shorter. I feel called out. For in their far-off ancestry, they had been mingled with men of broader and heavier build. Now I'm really feeling called out. Éomer was said to have been tall, of like height with Aragorn, who we know is quite tall. But he, with other descendants of King Thengel, were taller than the norm of Rohan, deriving this characteristic, together in some cases with darker hair, from Morwen, Thengel's wife, a lady of Gondor of high Númenorian descent. Now, Éowyn was also slender and tall, as you'll get to. She inherited that same bearing from her grandmother. And objectively then, there really isn't as much difference as you might think between her and Faramir in terms of their bloodlines, their status.
Yeah, absolutely. And in Appendix A, Annals of the Kings and Rulers, in the section on the House of Eorl, we read that Éowyn was slender and tall, with a grace and pride that came to her out of the south from Morwen of Losarnach, whom the Rohirrim had called Steel Sheen. So there really isn't that much difference in terms of bloodlines between Faramir and Éowyn.
Like we were saying.
You might think there is, but actually there isn't.
Yeah.
You could say there's a bigger difference between Faramir and Aragorn than there is between Faramir and Éowyn, actually. But that's a very good point, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of Aragorn, Éowyn obviously thought she was in love with him. Even Faramir thought that. And next week we'll see that Éowyn doesn't respond to Éomer's summons. And then Faramir says, "You do not go because only your brother called for you. And to look on the Lord Aragorn, Elendil's heir, in his triumph would now bring you no joy. Or because I do not go and you desire still to be near me. And maybe for both these reasons, and you yourself cannot choose between them. Perspicacity, thy name is Faramir."
Seriously, man, he gets it.
Yeah, because, and he's right, Éowyn fell in love with the idea of Aragorn more than the person.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, there's some reality checks here, right? He has been in love with Arwen longer than Éowyn's been alive, right? And possibly longer than she will be alive. It's hero worship rather than, mutual respect and friendship. As Faramir says, "You desired to have the love of the Lord Aragorn because he was high and puissant, and you wished to have renown and glory and to be lifted far above the mean things that crawl on the earth. And as a great captain may to a young soldier, he seemed to you admirable, for so he is, a lord among men, the greatest that now is. But when he gave you only understanding and pity, then you desired to have nothing, unless a brave death in battle."
Wow, he read her like a book.
Didn't he, though?
I mean, and he's throwing it all on the line there. We'll get to that next week. But man, that could backfire. That could backfire. Right? I mean, he's kind of calling her out. Like, you think this, but really it's this. And depending on where she's at and her willingness to hear that, she might not respond very well to that.
Right. Yeah. He's either getting a, okay, I'll think about that, or a slap.
Well, yeah, it's really all or nothing at this point. So, yeah, I mean, Éowyn is infatuated with Aragorn because he represents everything that she longs to be: renowned, powerful, loved, respected by everybody who knows him. And though it's not expressly stated, I think she sees him as a suitable love because she wants all those things for herself and will therefore be elevated if she were to marry him. And that's why at first she only sees Faramir as a friend, somebody that she can sort of share her solace with while they both heal. And in spite of herself wanting to be loved by Aragorn, she ends up finding herself charmed by this charismatic, empathetic, listening captain of Gondor. And Faramir, for his part, recognizes her as a kindred spirit, right? We talked about something in her calls to him and vice versa. Here's one that he sees who has faced the dark and come out the other side. And they do begin to bond over this, their mutual uncertainty as to what has occurred at the Black Gate. I think that she truly recognizes her feelings, and we'll see this next week, when he says that he's not offering her his pity. It's instead when he recognizes her valor and renown. She doesn't want the pity. She wants to be recognized for who she is. She's killed the Witch King. And despite being rejected by Aragorn, Faramir understands she is both valiant and beautiful. The two are not contradictory. Just because you're beautiful doesn't mean you can't be valiant. And he sees that valiant nature in her and calls it out. And that, I think, is what makes the difference for her. But, he's found somebody who understands his own trials because she's been through them too. And when she recognizes this, when she sees this, I think that's when Éowyn finally accepts her own feelings for Faramir, which she'd been fighting because she still wanted Aragorn. I mean, he's flipping Aragorn, for crying out loud. Who wouldn't?
Indeed.
But she realizes it would be better for her to be with Faramir because he understands both her situation and her heart. And he accepts her for who she is, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, I could kind of hear Stephen Stills singing, "If you can't be with the one you love, then love the one you're with."
Wow.
Did I go too far on that one? Love the one you're with. Yeah.
I was going to say, you got to sing it a little. No, don't, actually.
No, you don't want me doing that. It's better with backup singers. Do you want to play the... No, I don't think that's... No.
But yeah, you're right, because Faramir has been through stuff.
Oh,
Let's
yes,
remember, right?
Yeah.
He's not had the best relationship with Daddy.
No, he definitely has some issues when it comes to his
work
father.
Through over that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, when he's sitting in the garden and looking a little pensive, let's remember that amongst other things like, wounds and all that kind of thing, and being drawn back by Aragorn and all that malarkey, Daddy Dearest, meanwhile, he's got to process all of that as well.
And not only does he process the damaged relationship, the never really healthy relationship that he had, he has to process the fact that he saw his own father take his own life, and in such a violent and traumatic way. That's going to stick in his mind. He has gone through, as you said, a lot.
Yeah, they have both been through some stuff, right?
Boy, have they? Yeah.
Yeah. But just to directly address the initial question, I think Faramir and Éowyn's love for each other would actually have only grown stronger through the years, because they would have had a lot to do after the war, right?
Absolutely.
All of that patching up and sorting out to do.
Yeah.
Deeds, right?
Deeds. Oh, wow. Yes. That's a good way to tie that in. Yeah.
Yeah. And that would have suited both their personalities. Neither of them are the kind that just want to sit around and look pretty, right?
No. They are doers. Yeah.
Yeah. But, life post-war wouldn't have been easy for
Prince
Faramir
of
and Éowyn.
That's going to still be a rough place to be. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, the hills of Arnen would have been a frontier outpost for quite a long time. Those orcs haven't all just vanished off the face of the earth.
No.
We know that some have, but, there's always going to be the marauding folks around, and the Dunlendings might still be about,
Some Haradrims, some Southrons. Yeah, there's going to be some bad guys out there. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so it might be peace, but it's a peace you've got to maintain.
There you go. That's true. No, I think so. And this whole idea of marrying up versus marrying down, I think in the case of Faramir and Éowyn, it's safe to say that he's not really marrying down. He's marrying a peer. And that's the neat thing. He sees her as a peer because she is a peer. And that's one of the things that appeals to her. She sees that he does not view her as less than.
Right.
Which at the end of the day, that is how Aragorn saw her.
Yes.
As less than.
Right. It is so immensely important. I don't think Éowyn could ever have fallen in love with somebody who might in any way have made her feel like she was marrying up.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
Aragorn, it's different because she wants the things that she sees in him. She wants to be that.
I was going to say, it's more like she wants to be him than she wants to be loved by him in many ways.
Yeah. But when it comes down to it, an actual, true, mutual love, she needs an equal. Mm-hmm. And Faramir sees her as an equal from the very beginning. Yeah. So as two equals, they step out into the post-war world and they do the deeds that must be done.
Oh, and we're going to talk more about that next week. It's going to be so good.
Oh, yes, we are.
Well, folks, that does wrap it up for another and wonderfully long episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. But join us again next week when we shall sing and rejoice, for our watch hath not been in vain.
Yeah, how about you not sing and we can all rejoice for that instead?
That's fair.
Oh, folks, Alan and I want to thank the members of Team PPP, editor Jordan Rannells, Barliman Becca Davis, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator and all-round fabulous person Katie McKenna, graphic artist Megan Collins, and website guru, the one and only Phil Dean.
Folks, please take a minute to check out the prancingponypodcast.com. That's where you'll find show notes, outtakes, Prancing Pony ponderings, and our online storefront where you can get PPP merch, including chapter-specific artwork from Megan.
Yes, indeed, but please take a moment to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony Podcast has always been about the books, so if you're interested in a book we've mentioned on the show, you will find a link for it in our library. And we get a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
Indeed, we do. We also want to thank our patrons at the Kierdance contribution tier. I'll start with DeMay in Alaska, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Karen in the UK, Zaksu in Illinois, Brian in Texas, Sarah in New Jersey, and Joshua in Massachusetts.
And there's also Lucy in Texas, Erica in Texas, Carson in Oklahoma, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Anne in Kentucky, Sean in New Jersey, Mason in California, Maureen from Massachusetts, John in Japan, Olivia in London, Jackson in Tennessee, Robert in Arizona, Nick in Wisconsin, Lewis in South Carolina, Thomas in Germany, Craig in California, Bailey in Texas, and Kevin in Massachusetts. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed, thank you.
Now make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony podcast. Subscribe now through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your favourite podcast app.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, your dating tips for Faramir to barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com, as though he needs them. And if you want your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. Visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Please be sure to still email the question to Barliman, though. Even though Barliman's been a lot more reliable lately, there's still a lot of mail to sort through. We'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able.
As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
How var.